Welcome to Game Changers, where faculty members at the University of Texas offer Longhorn Network viewers an in-depth look inside their most innovative research and groundbreaking initiatives. On this episode of Game Changers, we will introduce you to the Center for Electromechanics. The CEM is utilizing an investment from the Department of Energy to develop a zero-emission fuel cell hybrid electric vehicle. Through a partnership with UPS, the CEM has been chosen to lead the vehicle design and its build through phase 1 of the project. Once complete, the CEM's prototype will lead the way for 16 additional delivery vans to be retrofit with fuel cell hybrid powertrains, which will be tested at distribution facilities across California.
We need to wean ourselves from our dependence upon fossil fuels. You just look at your highways. On the highway, you spew polluting gases. They're causing global warming. They're choking the people in the major cities of the world. And they're not sustainable over the long term. Not only that, but there are a lot of hidden costs with fossil fuels and with the oil that goes to run your car in an internal combustion engine.
We have been working for probably a decade at trying to understand how to electrify transportation. We've looked at technologies basically to improve batteries, to improve the vehicles, and now this project, which is we're really excited about, is to use hydrogen to augment the battery power.
Think about 2012, the Department of Energy put out a solicitation looking for zero emissions cargo and freight transportation equipment. Think medium-duty size vehicles, class 4 to 7 vehicles. Looking for zero-emission alternatives for those that would extend the range over existing versions of zero-emission vehicles, so that they could complete longer duty cycles, have more commercial viability for the fleet operators.
You get the range that you can get in a typical gasoline-powered vehicle. We can fill it as quickly as you can a typical gasoline-powered vehicle, and we get tremendous performance with no pollution. Well, funding for the project has actually come from the federal government, the Department of Energy, and from the state of California. And in addition to that, United Parcel Service has worked with us, UPS has worked with us to provide the problem and to provide the constraints. How can the technology actually be used for a company who's in a competitive market trying to make money?
The way to do that and still have a zero emissions vehicle is to outfit it with a hydrogen fuel cell that effectively recharges the batteries while the vehicle's driving down the road and allows you to extend the operating range of the vehicle. We formed the technical team first, then we approached UPS and even FedEx, other folks. I think we first reached out to UPS mainly because the Center for Transportation and the Environment is based in Atlanta, Georgia. UPS has headquarters in Atlanta, so they had some good contacts there. As part of the Department of Energy project, they weren't interested in just building a one-off of a vehicle and having a completely research and development project. They were focused on a commercialization project. More? No, we're good. Give me 2 seconds. Okay. Fuel cell vehicles are, at least for heavy and medium duty vehicles, are kind of in their infancy stages. There's not really a commercial product on the market. So the DOE formed up this program. California is investing in it as well to kind of spur the adoption of fuel cell technologies for medium duty trucks and provide a commercial solution for folks such as UPS in the future, so they can go out and procure these vehicles and have that zero emission solution for cargo transportation.
Pretty snug, but not to the point that you're clamping off, so we can still have the adjustability.
The first vehicle you see is built here at the University of Texas at our research center with UT students that UBS, our electric vehicle integrator, is hiring to work as interns. But that supports the university's mission in research and development, the very first vehicle.
A hydrogen fuel cell vehicle, really it's an electric vehicle. And so the prime mover, we've replaced the diesel engine in this particular delivery van, and I've replaced the diesel engine with an electric motor. The problem is with the electric motor, of course, it's being driven off batteries for your energy storage, but that provides, particularly with as large a vehicle as this van is, a fairly short drivable range. So the purpose of the hydrogen fuel cell is, in a typical hybrid vehicle, you would still have a small internal combustion engine extending the range of your electric vehicle capability. In this case, we've replaced that internal combustion engine with a hydrogen fuel cell. So now we are using hydrogen, reforming that into electricity to provide additional energy to the batteries, which allows the vehicle to drive much further distances.
Fuel cells have this interesting application that we can use hydrogen for storing our renewable electricity. If we take our excess electricity and make hydrogen, we can then turn the hydrogen around to make electricity. Or we can take the hydrogen and use it for fuel. So there's, and in either case, when we burn the hydrogen, what we're producing is pure water. So we have something that doesn't pollute, something that can strengthen the grid, and something that can drive your car. So if we can make that work, it makes a huge difference. And in addition, we already are piping hydrogen around to the petrochemical plants because we use hydrogen to make stuff. The chemical engineers take molecules apart, stick hydrogen in the right places, and suddenly you have Tide detergent or nylon or any of the other stuff that you need. So it's putting this hydrogen together in a lot of places. The trick is to be able to make it cheaply enough. And this could be a big difference over the next century.
Fundamentally, the difference between an electric vehicle versus a hydrogen fuel cell vehicle. People tend to like to pit the two against one another, but at the end of the day, a fuel cell vehicle is still an electric vehicle. It just has a fuel cell package added to that electric vehicle. And that fuel cell is able to convert hydrogen into electricity and really store a lot more energy on the vehicle in a smaller package.
Fuel cells were used by the Apollo spacecraft to provide the electricity when we put a man on the moon. So it takes hydrogen into a fuel cell and then it generates electricity. And the advantage with fuel cell vehicles is they have very fast refilling times. A fuel cell vehicle like the one that my colleagues are working on is innovative not only for potentially reducing costs, but reducing emissions.
When you use a battery, you reduce the pollution, right? So that is the major impact you will have, reducing the pollution. As well as when you use batteries, you can produce electricity from other means, and then you can store it and use it rather than burning the fuel and polluting the atmosphere.
Hydrogen is the most plentiful element on the earth, and so if we are able to take that and take the energy stored in it and be able to use it for transportation, which is one of our largest energy sectors, then that's a phenomenal goal to strive for. It'd be absolutely amazing if we can do it and get further away from fossil fuels.
When we return to Game Changers, we'll take a closer look at the vehicle's fuel cell as well as the lithium-ion battery and its impact not only on vehicles, but on the future of transportation.
You will see a lot of electric vehicles. That means the transportation sector will be electrified all over the world as we move along. So that is going to happen. We already see electric vehicles.
The technologies that spilled over that made electric vehicles viable now, where they haven't been for 100 years. You look at that was lithium batteries from consumer electronics, and that was power electronics controlling the electric motors from the computer industry.
John Goodenough is a professor at the University of Texas in Austin. He is credited with being the founder and developer, kind of the father of lithium-ion battery technologies. He developed this lithium-ion battery a couple of decades ago. The batteries that are on this fuel cell delivery van for UPS are actually from a company that licensed the technology developed by Dr. Goodenough here at the University of Texas. So those are lithium iron phosphate batteries.
So you have to find a way to make a battery that is safe, a battery that is competitive in cost with the internal combustion engine you have today, a battery which has the energy density that allows you to have a large charging range. So those are fundamental things you have to figure out how to do by getting the right materials in your battery. If you can get a battery that will do it, there's going to be not only trucks and buses and cars, but they're already phoning, what about airplanes? What about boats? What about drones? All kinds of things. So once you can make a better battery, you'll be surprised how many things it can do.
Fundamentally, a fuel cell vehicle is an electric vehicle. It's still driven by an electric motor, still has battery packs on it. But there's a fuel cell system included that extends the range of those batteries. You could think of it, at least how this vehicle is designed, is an onboard battery charger. So it uses hydrogen to recharge the batteries during operation.
It is solely converting hydrogen into electricity. So one of the major advantages, the only byproduct, is water. So you have air and the hydrogen mixed through the membranes, and you're extracting the electrons, which is what electricity is. That electricity is being stored into the batteries. The byproduct is water instead of all those nasty diesel exhaust gases that you hear about all over the news. And at that point, the vehicle is able to use the electricity from the batteries to power the DC motor, which directly drives your rear axle.
The biggest challenge in the project is really designing a vehicle that meets the range and duty cycles that UPS is operating these vehicles on. Here at the Center for Electromechanics, we did a lot of vehicle powertrain modeling and computer simulations of the vehicle, collected a lot of duty cycle and route data with UPS early on in the project to study and determine the right size battery pack, the right size motor, the right size fuel cell, how much hydrogen storage you had on there. Really optimize the entire system of the vehicle without necessarily over-designing any one component, right? You have to balance the cost and performance of each component and the entire vehicle, all the systems together.
The electric motor is directly driving the rear axles, which means we don't have a transmission. So all of the mechanical losses in transporting that energy, the rotational energy from the prime mover, from your engine, through the transmission to the rear axle, you get to eliminate those losses as well. So a huge part of this project early on was sizing that motor and making sure that it had the power and the torque capability to propel this vehicle down the road when it is fully loaded. When it comes to the power of in this case, an electric vehicle, I would actually say it is far superior to its diesel counterpart.
Do you feel like you go up and go down?
The fundamental challenge for a hydrogen fuel cell vehicle is really hydrogen. It's not a dense molecule, right? It's the lightest molecule out there, and it's hard to store a lot of hydrogen, a lot of energy in hydrogen in a small package. It's why we have to compress it to 5,000, 10,000 PSI, put it in high pressure cylinders on the vehicles. So we do have to compress the hydrogen to increase its energy storage for vehicular applications.
When it comes to hydrogen gas, yes, there are many precautions that we have to take into account that you don't necessarily have to factor in when it comes to a diesel or a gasoline-powered engine. Specifically, the biggest concern is the tanks themselves that are storing the hydrogen. These tanks have gone through rigorous testing, everything from being shot with a bullet to being thrown into a bonfire to be burned. And these are composite tanks, and they are made specifically to withstand the pressures of the hydrogen gas that are being filled within it. And then, of course, we have a whole multitude of fail-safes designed throughout the system.
Being a student coming in and working here at the Center for Electromechanics and getting to work on such a large-scale project, essentially taking a diesel engine vehicle, stripping it down to the bare chassis, removing the engine, all the oils, cleaning it up, and then rebuilding it as a zero-emission fuel cell vehicle. That's definitely a very rare opportunity that most students will not have during their education.
we design the vehicle and then we get parts in, but along the way, sometimes maybe, well, we thought this component we were gonna get, but then that component didn't actually come through. So we have to make some modifications to maybe a bracket or where something's gonna live. And to be in a facility like CEM, we have access to end mills and lathes and all the working equipment we need to make these modifications kind of right here at the shop with a quick turnover and continue on the project.
Most of the design process was handled by the engineers, whether here at the university or with our electric vehicle integrator partner. But you know, the students did have some involvement there. They did a lot of the solid modeling and helped in the layout of the vehicle. They were actually responsible for mapping out a lot of the dimensions of the vehicle. We didn't have a solid model of the chassis. They had to actually come out here, take a lot of physical dimensions and create that on their own.
In school, we learn about circuit breakers, fuses, motors, but I don't think I've ever actually worked with an actual fuse on my hands. I know the theory behind it, but I've never actually wired it or worked with it. I think here at CEM, they've given me the chance to actually wire stuff up and just have a, I guess, new experience or some experience that people don't have.
This allows a student to come in and be part of a design of a vehicle, build a vehicle, and test drive a vehicle all in a student's career. That's an awesome educational experience. And besides that, the vehicle he's putting out is one that's never been built by anybody anywhere.
There's nothing like real live hands-on experience to gain some expertise. And it's not only good for a resume enhancement, it's good for working knowledge to help out and understand what to go learn further. So once you get a base from some hands-on, all of a sudden some of the theoretical becomes more relevant and more interesting. So then you can ratchet up the knowledge, ratchet up the exploration, ratchet up the excitement from students in learning more.
When we return to Game Changers, we'll take a look at the support provided from the university, along with the cross-campus collaboration that has helped bring this project to life.
We're very hopeful that the combination of batteries and fuel cells is going to be the key that breaks open electrification of vehicle transportation.
I think the future of fuel cell vehicles is very promising. There's a lot of debate in the news and media right now, but your auto manufacturers, your Toyotas, Hondas, GMs, they're pretty much all in on hydrogen fuel cell vehicles. And probably the next challenge then is really just the cost of all the equipment and systems, right? That's sort of the next challenge for fuel cell vehicles. The tanks are relatively expensive. The fuel cell components are relatively expensive right now, but a lot of work's been going on. The fuel cell prices keep dropping and dropping. There's still plenty more headroom to bring those prices down so that they are commercially viable. We do work closely with the rest of the university throughout our various programs and projects. We can work with natural sciences, the College of Engineering, business school, even like petroleum engineering department and geophysics. We've done some work with those guys, partnering with them in the past.
The myth of a single brilliant scientist sitting in a small laboratory with a eureka moment is a myth. And it's so appealing because it almost never happens. What really happens is you get a lot of smart people who know a lot of the right stuff together on a team that's highly productive, and you get things that really matter.
There's part of the electrical engineering department there. There's the Center of Electromechanics. You'll see expertise being tapped in electrochemical expertise. For example, the battery or fuel cell developers. Controls, system theory. So those types of cross-disciplinary expertises that don't necessarily fit perfectly in a silo are important to bring together, and that's what these projects and that's what our efforts tend to do.
The administration of the university really likes the idea that we found a way of making a difference by expanding our research, involving the students in the research, give them practical experience. It's just a win-win-win.
The support from the university from the project, it really comes in many forms and factors. One is just that They are providing the facilities here that we work with. So we are an organized research unit within the UT Austin, which means that we have to go out after DOE proposal opportunities or DOD or other states, or we, work with private industry to bring in sponsored research projects. So we're kind of funded from outside sources outside the university. A lot of what we do, we cannot do without the facilities that the university has provided. We're also under the Cockrell School of Engineering on campus. And there we get, full access of the engineering school and their professors and students. If we're working on a technology where maybe it's outside our expertise, we have a wealth of knowledge on campus in the form of professors, throughout all the colleges, right? Not just engineering school.
For the University of Texas, it really is just going to be one in 1,000 things that we do that makes the world better. I think we're part of a really impressive university that is putting out things from autonomous vehicles to better streets to better traffic controls to cybersecurity so people can't hack into your car, the whole range of things around transportation. And we're just part of that whole activity that's going on at UT that is going to make our next generation transportation better and cheaper and faster than our last one.
At the Center for Electromechanics, we're able to work closely, we're able to provide a link between the academic side of the university and then outside industry, and really work to bring teams together and try to get new technologies out into the marketplace.
I think it's a game changer because we have so many wonderful people that are brilliant, like Dr. Goodenough and Dr. Montheram, doing leading edge research in batteries, for example. Pioneers who really, years ago, set the stage for a lot of these developments. And the interesting thing, at 95 years of age, he's not stopping. He's just as enthusiastic and has as many brilliant ideas today as he had back then.
The University of Texas would be proud to have supported the research that gave rise to a game changer as far as the whole society is concerned. If you can get an all-electric car that will be taken over by society and will help to wean us from the dependence upon the fossil fuels, the University of Texas can be very proud of what it's been able to do.
Because of the strong expertise we have in both materials and electrochemistry, UT is in a good position to discover game-changing materials and battery technologies as we go along.
Electric vehicles are probably going to change the world because we're going to have a very different type of a transportation system than we had for the last century, and we want to be part of empowering that and providing the people who invent it and develop it and make it real.
The hydrogen fuel cell project is a game changer for the University of Texas because we are on the forefront of working on a project that could potentially change the way we transport goods and services and people in the coming years. Not only changing the way we transport goods and services, but also doing so with significantly less impact when it comes to greenhouse gases and the emissions from the byproducts of the fuel that we are consuming in order to propel those vehicles.
It's a game changer in the sense that we are advancing fuel cell vehicle technologies for medium and heavy duty vehicles. Your automotive companies, Toyotas, Hondas, GMs, you name it, are doing research for light duty passenger vehicles right now. And they're leading the way right there. But in the medium and heavy duty marketplace, there's nobody really taking on that development aspect and trying to commercialize those vehicles. And with this project, we're looking to do that. We're looking to get this technology out of the laboratory, out of the prototype development phase, and make a product, right? Transition it into industry and, have somebody else run with it after we're done developing the very first vehicle here at UT. But really, change the marketplace and provide a solution for customers and fleet operators such as UPS.